All right, welcome back. Today we're going to be diving into the second part of chapter 2. It is going to be 2.6, graphing and solving inequalities. Okay, let's talk about what an inequality is to begin with. Okay, inequality. Now, if I'm talking about an equation versus an inequality, the first half of the chapter, in chapter 2, dealt with solving equations. So an equation is simply an expression that has somewhere an equal sign. So it's an expression like 2x plus 4 equals 12. All right, we have an expression that's equal to another expression, okay, or a group of term that's equal to another term. Okay, good. Now, an inequality is going to be something similar, but instead of this equal sign, okay, there's going to have an inequality symbol, which we have 4 types above. So if I was going to give you an example, you would have 2x plus 4. I'm just going to use the first one, which is less than 12. Okay. Now the difference is for an equation. The ultimate goal of an equation is to say, okay, if this was a scale, what number, if I put it into the letter of x, okay, will make both of those sides be equal. Okay, and that's when you solve and you have x equals a number. Right? And then you plug that number in and both of those sides should equal 12. Now, when I'm solving an inequality, you're going to do the same steps, okay? But when you get to the bottom, you're going to have x is less than a number. Okay, so now this really only has one answer. Okay, this is going to have a set of answers. So if we have a set of answers, we're going to have to graph them on a number line, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, now let's talk about what these types of symbols are. Now this should be review. So if we're reading these symbols from left to right, this point, whatever side that point is pointing to is going to be the less than side, and whatever side that's open to is going to be the greater than side. Okay, but if you read this from left to right, it's pointing over here, so we read that as less than. Okay, also if you're looking at that symbol, kind of looks like an L, and you could say less. Right, it kind of looks like an L. Whatever works. Okay, good. Now, if you have that symbol, okay, and you have a line underneath, that is going to be called less than or equal to. All right, let me just make that blue. See if I can do that. Awesome. Okay, good. So now I'll explain what that means a little bit further, moving down the line. Now let's talk about that symbol. Okay. Now if we read this from left to right, it is open to the left side. So if we read that, that is going to be greater than. So I'm going to say the left side is greater than the right side, simply. All right. Also, this one is going to be greater than or equal to. It's greater than or equal to. All right. Let me color code that so you guys could distinguish. Let's see, do that. Let's see, let me go with an orange. All right, cool. All right, so I have these different types of inequalities. What I'm really going to try to do is show you how to graph them first, then I'm going to show you how to solve. All right, so let's go for example 1. Now, this isn't what I'm going to really give you to graph in the towards the end of our lesson, but what I really want you to understand is how to graph the answer that you're going to get. So an answer you're going to get is going to look like x is greater than 1. Okay, x is greater than 1. Now, if I have greater than, okay, without the equals to, okay, greater than without the equals to, I'm going to say, okay, well, what number is greater than 1? Okay, what number is greater than 1? I could say maybe a 2, right? A 3. 4. 5. and so on and so forth, right? So now, let me ask you this. Is 1 greater than 1? No, 1 is equal to 1. That would make sense if there was a line under there, right? 1 is greater than or equal to 1, but that line is not there, okay? Now, real quick, this is important. Now, if I have just the greater than sign without the equal to, when I go ahead and graph, I'm going to use an open circle. So what that means is when I go ahead and graph this on a number line, I'm going to go to the value of 1, right? And I'm going to just draw an open circle on 1. Now, what I want to do is display that answer. So I'm talking about all the numbers that are greater than 1. So like I said, that's 2, that's 3, that's 4, that's 5. What about, 1.5, which is right there? What about 2.5, which is right there? What about 3.5, which is right there? 4.5, which is right there? What about all the numbers that are in between those numbers? Okay, so we're talking about every single number that is basically to the right of the number 1. So you would do that by drawing an open circle on 1 and just shading that whole number line like such with an arrow. Okay, and then that would be a graph for your answer. Okay, that would be your graph for your answer. Now, if you did have a line under that, the only difference is that circle would be solid, would be filled in. Okay, good. So good. Now, this next example will go a little quicker. So the first thing you want to do is, all right, find 2. Where's 2 on your number line? Right here. And now you're going to say, is it an open circle or a closed circle? Okay, open circle is going to be either less than or greater than. Closed circle is going to be less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. Well, what is that? It's less than. So it's going to be open circle. Good. Now, if you read this from left to right, I'm going to say x is less than 2. X is less than 2. Now, what's a number less than 2? Well, 0. 1. Negative 1 is less than 2, right? Negative 2 is less than 2, and so on and so forth. All of these numbers are less than 2. Okay, good. So what you're going to kind of see is you're going to either shade the left side of that circle or the right side of that circle. In this case, you're going to shade all the way down to the left side. Like such. Okay? And then that's going to be your answer. Cool. Okay, let's try these. Okay, so now, like I said, open circle is less than, greater than. A closed circle, it's going to be less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. All right. So now find that value of negative 1. Negative 1. Open or closed circle. Now it's less than or it's less than or equal to. Okay, less than or equal to. So less than or equal to, I'm going to have a solid circle on negative 1. Good. So now, what values am I talking about? I'm talking about all my x values that are less than negative 1. Less than negative 1. So I'm talking about negative 2, right? That's less than. Negative 3, negative 4, negative 5. Those values are all less than, okay, less than negative 1. So I'm going to go ahead and shade. Go ahead and shade. That's a sloppy shade, but bear with me. Okay. Okay, so it could look something like that. Awesome. Now I'm going to give you a trick. Okay, think of like an arrowhead. Have you thought about an arrowhead, something like that? Right? Sorry, excuse my drawing. Think about an arrowhead, something that looks like that. Now, do you see how that kind of looks like that if I wrote over it in green? Right. Okay, now what way is that arrowhead pointing? It's pointing to the left. Okay? So now, whatever way that arrowhead's pointing, that's the way you're going to shade. So if it's pointing left, you're going to shade left. So in this case, which way is your arrowhead pointing? It's pointing where? Right. So that's the direction you're going to shade. So here, what value am I looking for? 3. Open or closed circle? has a line under it, so it's going to be solid. Okay, good. Oh, it's the wrong value, Mr. Green. So it's going to be 3. Okay, good. And you're going to shade where down to the right. It's going to look something like that. Okay, awesome. Okay, so these are examples of what your answers are going to look like. You're going to solve and get something like that. Okay, and then you're going to graph looking something like that. Cool. All right, so now I'm just going to do one of these problems, and then the next problem is going to be a money problem. Okay, so now I want to get an answer that looks like this, so I go ahead and graph. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to make believe that was an equal sign. So if I had 2x plus 3 equals 7, what's the first thing you would do? I would subtract 3, right? After you draw your river, of course. Subtract 3. Cancel out. 2x equals 4. Divide both sides by 2. And I'm going to have x is equal to 2, right? So I'm going to do the same thing, but instead of having all the equal signs here, I'm going to just keep that simple. Okay? Now, if I have 3 on this left side, I could still draw my river. So to get that 3 to the right side, I need to subtract. So I want to subtract 3, subtract 3. I'm going to be left with 2x equals 4. Okay, good. Last step I want to do is divide by 2. Divide by 2. And I'm left with x. Now, here I wrote equals, but what should it be? It should be my greater than. Okay? And then you're just going to write x is greater than, what? 4 divided by 2 is 2. So now I have this inequality. Okay? So what I want to do is go ahead on my graph and graph that. So remember, this is going to be an open and a closed circle on 2. It's going to be, does it have a line under it? No, so it's going to be open circle on 2. And which way am I going to shade? Well, that's pointing to the right, so I want to shade everything down to the right. Awesome. So what I want you to do is I want you to try number 6 for a money problem. Call me over if you have any questions. All right? Good luck. See you next time.